today's Warzone video, I'm gonna give you guys my top 5 meta SMGs you guys need to be using here on Fortune's Key. As we all know, it's a brand new map that's been added to Warzone, so I'm gonna give you guys the best builds to help you hopefully dominate as much as possible. If you guys want to enjoy the video, give it a like, subscribe, so notifications turned on, and let's hop into this. All right, so for our first one here today, we're gonna give you guys a build here for the brand new SMG, the Marco. This thing is incredibly good. It's got a very high bit of mobility, and I think you guys are gonna love today's build for this thing. This is gonna have you moving around, flying around the map. It's kind of ridiculous, so let's get into this thing. First thing on the muzzle is going to be, of course, that beautiful recoil boost. We've run this on all of our Vanguard SMGs, and this is not changing here for this new DLC weapon. In the barrel section, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down here for the Perfetto Lesto 355mm barrel for aim down sight speed, movement speed, and of course aim walking movement speed and sprint to fire time. Overall, really good. Does negatively impact your bullet velocity and recoil control, but it's entirely okay. We're gonna be working on that. In the underbarrel section, you guys can either use the Mark VI skeletal, or you can run the M1941 hand stop if you feel like you need a little bit more recoil control. For me personally, I feel like I can control, and I really like the overall movement of this gun, so I go for the Mark VI skeletal foregrip. Now in the magazine section, what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw on the 9mm 48 round magazine for the increase in magazine ammo capacity. It does not decrease anything. I mean, it's some base ammunition type that comes to this gun. It's just a larger magazine for that base ammunition type. In the ammunition side of things, though, what we're going to do is we're going to throw in lengthened here for the overall increase in bullet velocity. Gotta like that. In the rear grip section, we're going to go for taped, which is going to just very vastly help us out with the overall mobility. It's kind of ridiculous here how many pros this has, and literally no cons. It's, I don't know when they or why they decided to add in taped grip here as a new attachment, more or less, in the season, but they did, and this is what it actually does for this gun. Pretty cool. Now in the optic section, we're going to go for that beautiful slate reflector here. Got to go for the slate. I don't really like the iron sights too much, and I just kind of would recommend that on a majority of these Vanguard SMGs, to be honest with you. It's like the recoil booster, kind of goes hand in hand. You pretty much always run a slate reflector. Now in the stock section, we're going to go for the Amaretto FR. This is going to help us out here initially with that initial firing recoil recovery, aim down sight speed, and of course movement speed. A very good stock attachment, if I say so myself, and I really like how this actually plays out. And in perk 1 here, what we're going to do is we're going to go for momentum for movement speed after kills. That's actually pretty cool. I mean, or you could go for something like maybe frenzy, which is a little bit kind of almost like quick fix with health regen after kills. So you guys could try that out if you really want to, but momentum works out very nicely. Then in perk 2, we're going to go for that beautiful quick here at the very top, which is that overall increase in sprint speed. You're going to be flying around the map with this thing. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, I can't tell you guys how many times I've taken people out with it. It is insane. All right, next up, I got to give you guys a build here for the H4 BLIXEN. So this is another DLC SMG for Vanguard that came through, and it's incredibly good. So let's hop into a build here for this thing. Even though it did get technically a slight bit of a mid-range nerf, it's still incredibly good at close range. So let's give you guys, of course, a build to help you dominate with. First thing, muzzle, of course, recoil booster like always. In the barrel section, we're gonna go for the Johnson 9 RMK barrel. This is definitely the best one in here as of right now, so I recommend for you guys to run this. In the underbarrel section, we're gonna go for the beautiful M1941 hand stop. You definitely need to be able to control that recoil on this thing a little bit more. So it kind of reminds me of the Owen gun, where you more or less kind of need this pretty much 9 times out of 10, unless you're just an absolute pro at recoil control. In the magazine section, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go for the 7.62 Gorenko 36 round mag, and that's because I'd like to choose this one, not because it's 36 rounds. That's not necessarily preferable, but it has increased torso damage, which is going to help you out in a large majority of those gunfights, as opposed to the Gorenko 54, which only does increase your headshot damage. So it's kind of one of those things. It's like, what do you really want? I mean, for me personally, I want increased torso damage to take people out faster, and I can kind of deal with that magazine ammo capacity. Ammunition side of things, of course, lengthened here. Don't got to really talk about this too much. In the rear grip section, what we're going to do is we're going to go for that beautiful, where is it, the fabric grip here for aim down sight speed, sprint to fire speed, and of course, hip fire recoil recovery control, which is definitely a good thing. In the optic section, we're going to go for slate reflector here. Like I said, for the previous gun, it's just pretty much like a guarantee you have to run the slate reflector. And the stock, we're going to go for the remove stock for maximum movement speed, sprint to fire, and of course, aim down sight speed. Really like the remove stock on this gun. It works out very nicely in terms of just making me super mobile, and I like that quite a bit. And then in perk 1, what we're going to do is we're going to go for fleet here for that movement, swap quickness, and movement speed. They don't have acrobatic on this thing, which would be my normal choice to go for in the SMG, but we have fleet here pretty much instead. And then of course, in perk 2, we're going to go for quick, like always on these SMGs, for that overall increase in sprint speed. You're gonna be flying around the map with this thing. It is insane, much like you will the brand new SMG this thing is really, really good as well. Next up, we're gonna give you guys a build here for the Armagera 43. This is an incredibly good gun. It got a bit of a nerf and a buff at the same time. They made it better at close range, but not as good at medium-ish range, which is not really what you're supposed to be using an SMG for anyway, so it doesn't really matter all that much, to be honest with you guys. So I'm just gonna go for using, you know, this at close range, and that's a huge plus because you're gonna be winning more gunfights in the range you're supposed to be using it in. So first thing, muzzle category, of course, recoil booster. In the barrel section, we're gonna go for the body 570mm precision barrel. This is just the best one out there right now, and I do believe it's just going to make this gun the best it possibly can be. In the underbarrel section, what we're going to do is we're going to go for the M1941 hand stop. Got to be able to control that recoil because this gun likes to bounce around a decent bit. I don't really know why it does that, but it likes to, so we got to be able to control that. Otherwise, I'd probably go for something like, you know, the Mark Skeletal if it didn't have as much recoil, but it does. Now, in the magazine section, we're going to go for the 9mm 60 round mag. I am a 60 round mag kind of guy, but also I just don't believe these are really any bit better. And by the way, the 8mm Curse 72 did get a nerf, and I believe some of these other magazines did get a nerf. And so this one stayed pretty much untouched, which is what we were using beforehand, which is always a good thing. Ammunition lengthens here, of course, ain't got to explain that one too much. The rear grip section, we're going to go for that beautiful polymer grip here for flinch resistance and accuracy and recoil during sustained fire. I would like to go with something like taped, but I just really like the flinch resistance and that accuracy that I do get when I'm actually laying down on the trigger with this thing, because that's how you're going to use it. You're not going to like ever burst it. You're just kind of laying down. So might as well just go ahead and use polymer on this. Optic, of course, we're going to go for the slate reflector here. Ain't got to explain that one too much since I've talked about it already. In the stock section, we're going to go for the Amaretto SA folding. I was about to look for something else, but it's the SA folding for sprint to fire speed, and of course, beautiful movement speed. Gotta love that. And then in perk 1, what we're going to do is we're either going to go for sleight of hand, which is my actual preference here. I like sleight of hand quite a bit, but if you guys feel like you can get away with not using sleight of hand, you want to just run something to help out with recoil control, you can definitely go for, you know, hard scope, which is going to be really good as well, but sleight of hand is my preference over hard scope. And then in perk 2, what we're going to do is throw on quick here, like always. So this is my full build here for the Armagera. Absolutely love this thing. Super good SMG. Definitely should be using this here on Fortune's Keep. All right, next up, we're going to give you guys a build here for the Vanguard MP40. I really like the MP40, and I do believe it's still really good here nowadays. There's a couple different builds for it that you can use. So I'll give you guys one that I actually used more recently that I'm a really big fan of. So let's hop into this. First thing, muzzle category, of course, recoil booster. In the barrel section, we're going to go for actually the first barrel here, which is the Kraussnick 317mm 04B barrel. A lot of people like to go for the short barrel, but I've had a lot of success recently using the OG barrel that was used way back in the day, which is the Kraussnick, and I really like it. So let's go ahead and throw this on there. In the barrel section, under barrel section, my bad, we're going to go for the Mark VI Skeletal, because this actually is not going to bounce around nearly as much as if we had the short barrel on there, so you can get away with running the Mark VI, and that is my go-to on this thing right now. In the magazine, we're going to go for the 7.62 Gorenko. Of course, this is just what you run on this. There's no reason to switch it up. Ammunition, we're going to go for, where is that, lengthened here at the very bottom for the increase in bullet velocity. And then in the rear grip section, you have a couple options, but I go for fabric grip here, ADS speed, sprint to fire speed, and of course, beautiful hip fire accuracy. You gotta love that. And then in the optic, because we actually have a good barrel to be able to use, what you can do is go through on the Kraussnick ISO1M iron sights. That's going to be entirely okay. If you really want to, though, you could go throw on something like the slate reflector, but this is one of the only builds that I really recommend using the iron sights. You do also get a benefit of increased aim down sight speed, which is definitely not a bad thing when you're talking about getting an SMG. And in the stock section, what we're going to do is we're going to throw on the remove stock here for hip fire accuracy and movement speed. I was about to say sprint to fire speed, but definitely not. So we're going to throw that on there. But in the perk section, we're going to go throw on actually steady for that ADS fire move speed. I want to make this thing a little bit more agile. And then in perk 2, of course, quick for overall sprint speed. This is a really fun build to use. Definitely should try this one out here. It's not the one that people have been using, but it's incredibly good. And last but not least, I got to throw in a Cold War SMG. I'm gonna throw in the Mac 10 because this got a pretty decent sized buff here within the update. I think a lot of people out there that maybe don't have a lot of the Vanguard SMGs ranked up, they can find some comfort in knowing that one of their SMGs they like, which is the Mac 10 from back in, you know, obviously the Cold War era, is definitely actually still good again because it got a pretty decent buff. So let's give you guys a preferential build to be able to use and dominate. First thing, muzzle, of course, agency suppressor. The barrel section, we're gonna go for the 5.9 task force. Like always, no reason to switch this up. There's nothing else better out there, to be honest with you guys. In the underbarrel section, what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw on the bruiser grip here for movement speed and hip fire accuracy. This is a really good attachment. You could do this or throw on the Tiger Team Spotlight. Switch it out between the two, kind of see what you think. But I like actually more or less usually the Tiger Team Spotlight light, but the bruiser grip works very nicely as well as always. Then in the magazine section, we're gonna go for the Stenag 53 round drum. No reason to throw on like a fast mech. It doesn't really make that much of a difference in the 53 round drum, as you know, of course, that ammo capacity, the reload speed is perfectly fine, so we don't got to do anything else with that. And then to finish off this build, we got, of course, got to throw on his stock, and that is going to be the beautiful Raider stock. 80s5 move speed, aim, walking move speed, and of course, sprint to fire time. This is my full build here on the Mac 10. This has been my top 5. If you guys enjoyed today's video, give it a like, subscribe, notifications turned on, and I'll see you all later. Just underscore cap, don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.